Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. My name is Dave Parker. This is Grant McQuilkin. If you don't know, we've been business partners for, almost 30 years now, which seems like a really long time. 30 long, hard years, right, Grant? And hey, we've seen a lot through the sale and for the purchase and sale of our own businesses, as well as helping a ton of people exit their businesses. We're coming to you for a couple of these videos. I'm up in my office in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. Grant is down in our offices in Allen, Texas. And so we cover the span between here and there, and we're doing it virtually, even with each other doing this video this week, actually for a couple or three of these things. So glad to have you with us. And we're going to talk about something today that is really on the hearts of a lot of the business owners we deal with, because it's talking about how to transition your company to the next generation. And first, let me say this before I kind of turn it over to Grant. You know, it's a question, how do I transition? That question is not often asked because oftentimes they don't have kids in the business, or maybe they've been in the ownership position so long that they either don't trust their kids or they don't know how to create liquidity without, putting a huge debt burden on their children. Perhaps their children have not shown interest. Perhaps they've just not been involved with the business and they're not sure how to, maybe they have part of the kids are involved in the business, part of them that are not, and they're not sure how to make this transition and make it fair and equitable for all the children. And so, consequently, business owners often wait too long and to even discuss it. We were with a transaction not too long ago where their kid was in the business and didn't know anything about him going and selling the business, which was, it can be very awkward at times. So, Grant, there's a lot of different vehicles to use out there, life insurance, other things to kind of mitigate some of the risks with that. But it's probably one of the most, some of the most, I would say, fulfilling transactions that we've helped people with are the ones we were able to help them transfer it from one generation to the next. That's a cool deal. Fill us in on some of the things.
Yeah, I think this is one of those engagements that we really, really enjoy. Yeah. But there's some hard questions that we get to ask, and some of them are not so comfortable for our clients. But
get fun asking them, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. What is the next generation capable of, right? And you note that I didn't say, are they capable of doing what a client is capable of doing, right? Because a lot of times the next generation is a different gift set. They have different ways of working, all those kinds of things. And because they work differently, the owners are a little bit uncomfortable or lack confidence in their kids' ability to run the company, because they're not going to do it exactly like they do it. And this is
they're not going to do it manually anymore. They're going to bring technology into it.
Yeah, God forbid they bring Excel spreadsheets to the table, right? But we get into the room and we listen. We kind of give a third party look at the next generation. We can even gauge what kind of gaps there are in their skill set, so that maybe we can advise the owner of what kind of person they need to hire, what gift set they need to hire to supplement their kids. We can gauge the appetite of the kids to actually do the transaction. Some of them really enjoy what they do, but they're not interested in owning it and running it without their founder or parent involved.
Right.
The toughest test is when there are multiple kids, right, involved in the company. The question's like, who's going to control the thing? Who gets more ownership? How's it going to be governed? What happens if there are kids that are not involved in the company, as you talked about? How much are the kids going to get compensated? A lot of times there's already compensation arrangements that the owners made with the kids that are really not consistent with the contribution of what those kids do for the company. And so if you pull dad or mom out of that company, then all of a sudden that produces or can produce some massive conflict because some of the next generation are candidly overpaid, and some of them may be underpaid as a consequence. And,
we see some where the kids have been involved and they're extremely underpaid,
Yeah.
Dads are they're gonna earn their way.
Yeah.
And they're paid a lot less, and it's not commensurate with the job. And we've seen probably more on the other side where they're way overpaid.
Yeah, and it always blows up afterwards, right? They want to do the transaction, but then you end up with a fractured family environment. We always joke. Right? Yeah, we always joke. How are we going to preserve the unity in the family on Sunday, at the lake, because if this thing goes bad, it affects a lot of people, and nobody wants that. And frankly, that's the reason why the owner doesn't deal with it. And that's a tragedy. And we end up looking at the next generation, seeing the capability, seeing the appetite, and making sure that we deal with all the elephants in the room. And if it's not possible, then the best thing for the next generation is that we actually sell the company to a third party who then maybe employ the second generation or not. But then they have the resources to do whatever they want to do.
Talk a little bit about financing, Grant. Because that can be a little complex. Creativity.
Yeah, it can. The actual financing is not that complex, but navigating it through some of those crazy things. When you're having the company borrow money, it affects the balance sheet, which may affect bonding, which may affect other things. It may constrict the ability of the company to buy and to take advantage of cheaper inventory buys and those kinds of things. And so you don't want to handcuff the successors, so that they can't be successful. You want to make sure that that's why advisors are so important, because you want to make sure that you leave them with not just a balance sheet, but the ability with the appropriate assets to carry on the success of the company.
Right.
And candidly, you and I can vouch for this. The stat is less than 2% of companies actually make it successfully through the second generation. And so what you're trying to do is extremely complicated. And your family and the unity of your family has a greater priority than the business staying in the family. And so that's where we have hard conversations to make sure that what's best for the family is actually pursued, not what one person wants or what another person wants.
Yeah. And I think finally, as we kind of end this, is to say that, don't be surprised at don't overestimate what your kids are going to say or think or whatever. We had a situation where, dad was really wanting his two boys. One had been in the business, one had been out of the business for a while. And we brought them all in and talked to the boys. And it was really great because, the one that had been in the business said, well, the one that's been out of the business is actually more qualified to be the one running the business. And so, that kind of surprised us. But he was absolutely right. And so I think oftentimes, the children that are involved with the business know more than we think and have a greater sense of what's needed for the future of the company than we think as well.
And holistically, this is the biggest difference between maybe guys like us and our team and maybe a broker or somebody just to facilitate the transaction. We're wanting the transaction to succeed for the successors. And right. So there may be holes. For example, we've seen where maybe the second generation is tremendously capable from a sales standpoint, but they're very, very poor on the financial management piece, or at least that's the perspective of the owner. Well, then the easy thing is what does it cost to get a financial professional in there who can set up the systems that will help mitigate that lack of skill? Not, he can't do what I can do,
Right. All that to say this: if you're one of those business owners that has, multiple generations, or maybe you're going to pass it to the next generation, we'd love to be able to talk with you about that. If we can be of help in any way, please give us a shout, give us an email, whatever. Be sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll look forward to talking with you next time.